UI libraries have grown to be one of my favorite parts of development. They save developers time, you have beautiful code that you can utilize in your applications, and overall it's a great experience for everyone involved. However, where there's an upside, there's probably a downside, and I think this is the case for UI libraries. And so what I'd like to do in this video is just talk about the downsides of using UI libraries and where we're standing as a development field as a whole. Because, over the past few months, at least I've noticed that there's this issue that we'll go over with UI libraries. And look, I'm not anti-UI library, that's not what I'm saying. I love UI libraries, but there is a small little issue that I think we should highlight and watch out for. And so there are three main problems that I think UI libraries have. Now, the first one being that devs don't learn. So imagine this, okay? Imagine you're in the first grade and you're learning math. I don't know what you're learning in first grade, like addition, subtraction, basic stuff, right? But imagine from the get-go, when you just started learning math, that your teacher gave you a calculator that you can always use. Although you will probably get more work done at that younger age because you're given this, you don't know how to think for yourself. Like, you're so over-reliant on this thing doing addition for you that you will never learn how to do addition by yourself. And I think the same issue is happening with UI libraries. When a dev does not know how to build a card with some items and, let's say a button at the top here, when they don't know the actual way of doing it, then they will not learn. And I just think it's a problem if you don't know. I know some of us are backend developers and we don't want to learn these front-end things. And that's a great argument. But I think for the most of us, we don't fall into that category. And I think at least learning the basics of how to do something, not even at a high level, is always good. Like, look, I'm not gonna learn how to build out a beautiful card like Next UI. Again, I've talked about this in the past, but I'm probably not gonna know how to do something like this with the button ripple effect. But knowing how the design was made and understanding how to do this on my own will just make me a better developer and help me think better in general. And in my opinion, right? The creative process requires us to think on our own. If we can't think on our own and think for ourselves, then we cannot create something unique. And by learning to think on your own, by building your own components and not completely relying on UI libraries, that will make you a better developer than someone that's over-reliant on these libraries. And that actually leads us to the second issue with UI libraries, and it is that devs are just overusing it. And what's bad about overusing this is that all apps will end up looking the same. Now look, I don't really have an issue with this, and I can't really be talking a lot because I do take some aspects of a UI library and putting it in here. For example, like the search bar and stuff like that. But if you're looking at modern day applications, I just feel like they all look the same. They all have the same button. They all have the same input. It's like they're cookie cutter. Like, they all come from the same spot. Like, it's just, that's what it is right now. And again, look, there's nothing wrong with UI libraries, but I just think if your goal, like myself, is to build good applications and good sites, we have to not overuse and over-rely on other people's code. And look, it is one thing to take something complex like this and changing it into your own, because this actually takes a lot of time to do and it's quite a process to get. But it's another to just go to something like Shad CNUI, which again, I love, and using a card component that you can just easily replicate with divs or sections. Like, look, this is just a bunch of divs. Like, a card is just a div, okay? You're just using divs, but you're just calling it card because it's an import, and I just don't like that. And just the over-reliance, if you can't make a card on your own and you need a card component to build out a basic thing you can do, then are you really a front-end developer? Probably not. Like, it just icks me when we're just using something too much. And again, I don't think it's bad to use it in some ways. Again, maybe something like a breadcrumb you might want a UI library for because there's more into it than just that. But with the basics, what's been happening, at least from my own visuals on the situation, there seems to be an over-reliance on libraries and less thinking and less original designs. And what that leads to, because everyone's using UI libraries and because there's a limited amount that are really good of UI libraries, leads to everything looking the same. And the final issue with UI libraries before we get into how to fix this and how to actually, not fall into this trap is that the developer will not be able to reach their goals. And to explain this in the best way possible, if we go back to the calculator example, although this student, right, this is the kid that's using the freaking calculator, although this person, right, will be able to do maths with the calculator, when it comes time to work on complex items or do stuff on your own or try to build something original, they will not be able to do it. And I think the same thing goes for UI libraries. UI libraries will let you build good apps. This is an application, okay? It will help you with building out good looking apps, sure. But over relying on it when it comes time to building a bigger application where it requires you to have a base level knowledge of components and specific things in design, because you're not training yourself to build stuff natively and you're over relying and you're not learning how to creatively build stuff, you will not know and you'll be completely confused throughout the development process. And look, there's nothing more sad than someone not reaching their potential. I think that you're not reaching your potential if you're over relying on a UI library or a framework. I'm gonna stop complaining, and I hope I didn't come off that way. I promise I'm not like that. I don't like to complain, but let's go over some solutions to fix these problems, right? We can complain all day, but how do we solve this problem? Essentially, to literally just solve all these three things at once, and you probably know where I'm going here, it's to limit UI libraries. For example, if you're a person that's over-reliant on this, like you watching this probably feel that you're over-relying on this, instead of always going to ShadCN and saying, I need to use the avatar, or I need to go to Next UI and take the button and take this away. Instead of doing that, say to yourself, I'm gonna build this on my own. And again, rather than using a UI library, you're saying, hell no, I'm gonna go over here and maybe spend a couple more minutes or hours on building my own components, but I'm doing it for the sake of myself. I tend to struggle with these things because we want things to be convenient and having these accessible is good. But deep down, we kind of know that overusing this is not good for us because it makes us worse developers. At least in my opinion, the only solution to this is to limit the UI usage to important things or things that are more complicated than we think we can do. And for the rest, just doing it on our own. And because we don't want to be lazy developers with the same applications, that's not what we're trying to preach here on this channel and as a community. We have to build things on our own. This is the harder path, sure, but I think it's well worth it for all of us because we're going to build the apps that we want. We're going to design the things that we want, and we're not going to have an app that just looks like a million more apps. But yeah, I just want to know your opinions on this. So let me know down below if you have an opinion on this matter. Maybe we disagree, maybe not, but let's have a civil conversation about this. I'm just saying we're overusing it in my opinion, and we can use it less. And by the way, if you want to join the developer Discord group, I will leave that down below for those of you who want to join. Happy coding, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.